your mouth.
Shut for 1 second. Shut for a second.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
What did
You're
you
just
just
coming
say?
off stupid.
Objection. Objection. Objection.
Whoa, boy! Who would have thought that today of all days we would have some freaking awesome news? Now, I've seen, and we'll get to it in a little bit. There's a lot to talk about before we get to the two proteins tonight. But I couldn't have asked for something better. I am extremely grateful. Let's tweet this out. This has been good evening, Lily. This has been actually a pretty cool week. A lot of cool shit has happened this week. How's everybody doing? How you doing, Lily? You having a good what is it, Thursday? You having a good Thursday? Oh my gosh. So there are different types of judge robes. One of them I think is called the barrister. And instead of having these big sleeves, they stop being sleeves about right here, and they become like these like actual sleeves instead of these big ones. I'm thinking about buying one because that's just so much easier to deal with. I keep catching the edge of my desk, and I've got these things on the side of my desk where I rest my arms so I don't end up pinching a nerve. Okay. You know what? I wish that I could put media assets on this side. Wait, can I? No, just scenes. Yeah, it's a little like bell bottoms. Yep. Capri Sun. Gotta love it, right? Okay. So obviously we're not just gonna go with the great story to start. I saw this. Let's see if I can find it on Twitter. First off, what I do want to say, if there are any new subscribers here, we're up, I think about 15 since my last stream. And so I just want to start off by saying hello to any of the new people, welcoming you, saying how, obviously grateful I am that you're here, that you subscribed to begin with. If you watch the videos, comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff, it's appreciated more than you know. Let's see. Am I right about that? Let's see. My last live stream was the 24th. What was that? 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I think it's about 20 subs in the last 2 weeks. Okay. So this is what I saw on Twitter from Fox News. Breaking news. Federal judge orders halt to alligator Alcatraz. And this is one of those things that pisses me off. Y'all know how when you get on Twitter now, and in fact, let's see if I can find an article. Let's go to Fox News. Okay, you might be able to see it now. See, look at this. Look at this. Want to read the article first? Now, the reason it asks you that is because I'm about to retweet something that I might not actually know what the article is saying. Now, why is that? because the headline might not be true or might be misleading. Now, in this case, what they're talking about is the shark attack that you get when you get off the bus at Basic in whichever base you go to, whether it's Benning, Jackson. I think there's one or two others. I can't remember. But for a long time or for a while, they haven't been like, the videos that you see of soldier or Marines getting off the bus and then getting yelled at. They haven't done that in the Army for a while. And this article is about Pete Hegseth telling them that they are allowed to start doing shark attacks again. But I bring that up because what pisses me off is this. Breaking, federal judge orders halt to alligator Alcatraz. This is a lie. This is absolutely false. That's not what the federal judge said. And this is the shit that pisses me off because when I was in law school, I would see fellow classmates of mine post this shit. Someone would say that there was a case where I think it was an ATF agent or a police officer shot a dog because it was like running at him or something. I can't really remember what happened. But the article read, judge says it's okay for police to shoot your dogs. It's like, and then the law student that I knew, who was a good law student, and this is what really annoyed me about it. She was a good student. She shares the article and she starts talking about how terrible it is and how bad police are for being able to shoot dogs. And I commented, I was like, did you read the article? Did you read the opinion from the judge? That's not what the judge said at all. The judge said that in this case, this officer feared for his life and had a reasonable ability to shoot the dog. And they're not saying it's a good thing. They're not saying it's a bad thing. But lying about it and just to get clicks on your fucking article is bullshit. What's up, Spider Unlimited? How you doing, man? Welcome. Oh, wow. 7 minutes in, I've already cussed 10 times. How many other attorneys enjoy Capri Suns? And so what's funny is Fox News says, breaking, federal judge orders halt to alligator Alcatraz. Then you scroll down to find the article. And you read this, federal judge halts expansion at Trump's admin's alligator Alcatraz detention facility. If you remember earlier this week, I think it might have been yesterday morning, DeSantis or somebody, either DeSantis, it might have been Stephen Miller, but someone mentioned that they were expanding alligator Alcatraz. They called it Alligator Alcatraz 2. God, that's a mouthful. And this is what the judge is stopping. Now, there's questions about humanity stuff and whether or not they are, whether or not it's a humane facility and all that. I still believe that if your biggest complaint is that it's really cold and you're in the Florida Everglades, you're fucking lucky. Like this week has been real nice here in South Carolina. Right now, the temperature is, let's let it load, 77 degrees. Last week, it was 95 degrees at this time. So, well, I mean, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I didn't make a lot of videos last week, because I'd come in here, I'd put this on, and I would just be sweating like a dog 5 minutes in. So the video started looking terrible. We're definitely going to blame the heat on that one. No, Spider, I'm sorry. I don't care where y'all, man. I don't want that shit back. It was 108 last Wednesday. Like my AC couldn't keep up. That's how hot it was. My power bill is insane right now. So that's my first little rant. I'm just sick and tired of these news agencies doing this shit. More people would trust you and follow you and listen to what you have to say if you were just being honest. Let's see. I'm sure. Weesh. What's up, Lean Back? You know what, Lean Back? Since you're here, you had a comment on something. Let's see if I can find it. I was going to talk about it. Let's see. In regards to the Texas Democrats deciding to flee Texas and go to different Democratic states, Lean Back said the same group of people who staged sit-ins in government buildings like feckless college students. And you were talking about the story yesterday, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals concerning voter ID in Texas. So yes, so the voter ID law in Texas went into got to the Court of Appeals and they upheld it. So the voter ID that I believe passed in the election, Lean Back, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Texas was one of the states that passed that bill or passed that, I guess, amendment in the election. And it made it, obviously it made it up to the Court of Appeals and they upheld it. So the thing that's so great about that is not only does that mean that the law in Texas is good now, unless whoever lost is appealing to the Supreme Court, but I doubt they would risk that becoming law nationwide. But not only is it good in Texas, but it's good law throughout the district or throughout the circuit Texas is in, which let's pull up our trusty circuit court map. I need to just have this as a fucking graphic. Texas is in the Fifth Circuit. So that court case is good in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. It is what's the word? I forget what it is. Compelling? No. Okay, I gotta Google this because this is gonna kill me. What is the word to describe Court of Appeals decisions outside of your circuit? Persuasive. It is persuasive, which means that if that law or that sort of law gets appealed in the Ninth Circuit, the 10th, 8th, whatever, anything but the Fifth Circuit, that the state can use this case as a persuasive argument. They could say, well, this circuit said this. And you're supposed to give kind of a deference to that decision. You're supposed to be like, well, we all listen to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is the arbiter of what's constitutional. If someone below them found for this, then how do we find for this without disagreeing with the Supreme Court? Clyde says that he is lurking, but enjoying. I'm enjoying you being here, man. Breezy says, Kings! Kings. And Irish says hello. Hello, bud. How are we feeling, guys? Is everyone sick and tired of all this winning? Oh my God, that's really annoying. Why is this not the default? Oh, can I force this to be the default? What if I... Hang on, let me see which one it goes to. Stop sharing. So it goes to this. What if I Nope, I can't. I was going to try to delete one of the things, but it didn't work. Yes, Mash, it is good news. Now, the first thing I do want to talk about, and I was going to make a video about it, but in all honesty, I got a little lazy. And this was Friday, I think this happened. Hang on. Okay. Here we go. Okay, now we all remember the big, beautiful bill, right? The OBBB, the one big, beautiful bill. So in that bill, there was supposed to be a lot of stuff that fell out in as it was passing the House. There was stuff that fell out as it was getting through the Senate because of the parliamentarian and other issues. One of the things that fell out was the elimination of suppressors and short-barreled rifles from the NFA, the National Firearms Act. But that might be a good thing. As I said a couple of weeks ago when this happened, I think it's a good thing because now it makes a whole bunch of the NFA unconstitutional. So one of the things, if we can hearken back to, what is it, the 1930s when the NFA was passed? 1934, the National Firearms Act is passed and signed into law by FDR. I think it's FDR. So they so one of the things that it did was it put a $200 stamp, a tax stamp, on several items: suppressors, short barrel rifles, all this sort of stuff. And what the OBBB did was it removed that price. You still have to register, and you still have to, I think, get approved, but it no longer costs anything. Now, the problem is that the NFA has been upheld several times because of the Commerce Act. The Commerce Act the Interstate Commerce Act allows for the federal government to make laws that affect interstate commerce and help raise money. And that was the purpose of the NFA, to raise money. Well, as it was upheld in they put it in here, 1937, I think. Yes, that was obviously supported as an aid of a revenue purpose. That's what Sonzinski v. United States in 1937 said, that the NFA that the purpose of it was to raise tax revenue. So it was something the federal government could do. Now, because there is no longer any tax revenue being made off of these several items, requiring a registration for them is illegal. Those portions, those lines of the NFA have now become unconstitutional. So what happens? Well, my guess is that the very least thing that could happen is the Supreme Court strikes I just had a thought. Okay, what I think is going to happen is the Supreme Court's going to strike those items out of the NFA. They're going to say that short barrel rifles, what were they? They were suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, and NFA defined any other weapons. Wait, hang on. Someone that's more aware of this than I am. Did the OBBB strike out the tax for every item in the NFA, or just 3 items? Don't make me ask Gronk. Give me an actual person. Bueller. Okay, Spider says he knows it's suppressors and short barrels. Okay, so the lawsuit says suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, and NFA defined any other weapons. So I don't know what NFA defined any other weapons means. I don't know if there's a list in the NFA that says a tax stamp on all these weapons, and the OBB struck the tax stamp for those as well. I do know that they did it for suppressors and short barrel rifles. So we're going to just think about it in those lines. So this lawsuit claims that because there's no longer tax revenue being collected via the registration of suppressors and short barrel rifles, that the registration of those items is now unconstitutional. And I agree. It's absolutely unconstitutional. It is a hindrance on the Second Amendment, and which has been deemed unconstitutional by a lot more liberal Supreme Courts than this one. So their goal is to get this up to the Supreme Court and have the NFA struck. Now, I don't think the NFA gets struck. I think what we probably see is a portion of it get removed. Most likely the line items that say suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns. If there's, because I'm pretty sure the NFA is also one of the things that required a stamp on machine guns. I don't remember. Oh well. If those items aren't listed in the OBBB, then the tax stamp is still there, and you can still raise revenue on those. So, Supreme Court likely upholds that. Now, if the Supreme Court strikes down the entire NFA, then the question becomes, what is their wording in their decision? If they strike it down in a way that basically reaffirms the right of the American citizen to own any weapon, then I'm crowdfunding my Harrier jet. And we'll name it Kings 1, and we'll fly around, we'll buzz the Capitol with it. Okay? After I find a pilot, because I don't have a license. Irish, no. This is a Lego AT-AT that I bought from Lego in 2022, maybe. Yeah, no, I did not buy it off eBay. I mean, what do y'all think? Think we just dive into it? Okay, so Gina Carano won, or did she? Now, I know that, in fact, I know Ryan Kennel is getting ready to go live. EBN is currently live. Well, they're doing their pre-show, which is annoying as hell. Let's see. Okay. Well, I was hoping their chats would be saying something about it right now, but I don't think they are. Just a reminder, everybody, if you see someone in a chat on Twitter, something saying, I wish that this had gone to Discovery, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't care if it's Gary or John from next door. They don't know what they're talking about. This thing has been in Discovery for probably the entirety of this year. So let me explain how this process goes down, okay? Because way too many people spouting off at the hip thinking they know what they're talking about, and they have no idea. So he's going to explain. No. So the process is governed by the federal rules of civil procedure, and in some cases, the federal rules of evidence. Now, the federal rules of civil procedure lay out basically a timeline. So let's start with the date that we already know, the one that we don't have to do any guessing about. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Disney loses motion to dismiss. Here we go. Okay, remember, guys, we talked about this on King's Advisors on, I believe, the day it happened. Let's share. So Disney lost their attempt to stop the trial or stop the lawsuit on October 17th of last year. Okay. So that means the court made a decision on October 17th. Disney had 2 weeks to file an answer. Okay. I don't think they filed one. I couldn't find one. If they did, then someone needs to keep better records. But I didn't find one. Now, after those 14 days, hang on. I've got my outline from civil procedure here. Hang on. Wow, this was such a boring class. Okay, so here we go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Whew. Everyone's leaving. So 30 days after the defendant's answer or a denial of a motion, so 30 days from October 17th, let's count the days. And they're not business days. They are days. So a month, November 17th, is the Rule 26F conference. Now, that's where all the parties get together. They get in a room with the judge, and they basically lay out deadlines for discovery. If you're going to file a motion, it has to be filed by this date, and this is the day of the trial. That's why up here at the top of the article, we see that the trial will start September 29th, 2025. That's less than 2 months from now. Okay? Now, if there's anyone on this planet that thinks discovery only lasts a month and a half and that attorneys just lollygag around during pre-conference motions, they're retarded and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So within 14 days of their meeting, so again, 30 days from October 17th, let's call it November 17th. Okay. Within 14 days, so the end of November, December 1st, the names of individuals with discoverable information. So Kathleen Kennedy, probably the head of HR at Lucasfilm, probably a similar position at Disney. The names of the people who were involved in the Zoom that they wanted to do, all those sort of people, those names have to be sent over to her team, any relevant documents, and then she has to, or her team has to do the math on what her damages are and send that over. And then any insurance agreements. Now, there are some exceptions, but they're not anywhere near important. So during that first, let's see, 30, due within that first 30 days are your interrogatories, which are 25 written questions per party. Your request for production, which are basically the documents, any electronically stored information, tangible items, those have to be produced within 30 days. Your request for depositions, each side is allowed 10 depositions with a limit of 7 hours each. Those have to be that list of who you're going to depose has to be sent over. For Gina, I would assume she's probably the only person that Disney would depose. Maybe depending on who she was dating at the time, they might depose him. But I can't really think who else they would depose. She would obviously want to depose Kathleen. I would depose Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I'd depose, again, heads of HR, leadership teams in that meeting they wanted to do, all that stuff. But again, requests for admission, these are basically admit that A, admit that B. So when I was doing family law, one of my requests for admittance would always be admit that you're not a good mother. Obviously, they're never going to do that, but I need them to either say yes or no to that so that when we go to prove that they're not a good mother, we have them saying, I am a good mother. And then I can say, well, look at all of this. You're clearly not a good mother or father. There can be bad fathers too. And then any subpoenas or your list of expert witnesses are due within 90 to 100 days. So the deadline for half of this evidence has already passed. So for anyone to think, and I keep kind of looking over because I want to see what people are saying in these other chats, but anyone thinking that they haven't gone through discovery, which I've already said several times on Twitter, I'm not throwing shade to some of these people. Some people just don't understand. But what annoys me is if you don't know and you just start saying this kind of stuff, like you just look dumb. Yeah. Breezy apparently is a mother now. Pray for those children. But yeah, so we saw the statement from Disney, and let's see, Lucasfilm. Let me pull it up. Breezy, you are saying way too much stuff. Okay, let's see if I can find. I had it open. I don't think I do anymore. Just scrolling through my what do you call it? History. Here we go. Share this tab instead. I don't care about Stanley Tucci. So this is what the statement provided Variety said. The Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm are pleased to announce that we have reached an agreement with Gina Carano to resolve the issues in her pending lawsuit against the companies. Ms. Carano was always well respected by her directors, co-stars, and staff, and she worked hard to perfect her craft while treating her colleagues with kindness and respect. So if that's true, can we rewind the tape? Let's look at everything that you called her. I mean, y'all called her like a terrible human being. With the lawsuit concluded, we look forward to identifying opportunities to work with Carano. To work together with Miss Carano in the near future. Now, this I think is the very first thing that's kind of telling about what. Whoa. You know what? Good point. An iPhone 13, like that's 5 years old now, isn't it? So Lily, I wouldn't be surprised if it's part of the settlement, but I mean, this is the kind of thing that any corporation that after they get out of something this big, something that's garnered this much attention, that they always release some sort of statement about being happy to be out of it, being happy to be done. But this is the part that I think is telling. We look forward to identifying opportunities to work together with Miss Carano in the near future. So my guess is, and what's Clint Eastwood's wife, Sandra Locke, I believe. Yeah, Sandra Locke. One of the things that she got out of her divorce with Clint Eastwood, I think it was the divorce, was she got a first look deal with, I believe, NBC. And this was basically a deal that said, we're going to put you up in an office. Any project you come up, you find a script, you write a script, anything like that, we'll take it. We've promised to take a look at it. Now, NBC had made a deal with Clint Eastwood basically to just put her in the office and never actually greenlight anything she came up with. Clint Eastwood at the time was basically one of the number one guys in Hollywood, so NBC didn't want to lose him. This made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, if I remember correctly, and the Supreme Court basically said you told NBC they didn't hold up their end of the bargain fairly, and sent the case back down to the appellate or the district court to be heard again. I believe they ended up settling for a whole bunch of money. But that's kind of what I think is happening here. I think Gina has probably gotten some sort of first look or right of first refusal deal. It's probably like some sort of 10-year deal. We'll come to you with any role that fits these 4 or 5 things. The thing that I would be concerned about, though, is I think Universal has more of a chance to be making movies that fit Gina Carano than Disney does. So that would concern me. Like, I don't think she's going to get much use out of that deal, if that's the deal. Obviously, I think she also walked away with a nice pile of money. She's got that farm that ranch up in, I think it's Wyoming, maybe Montana. I'm sure that costs a lot. So I'm sure she needed the money. But I don't think it's the sort of thing where she sold out for the money. I think that, they've been doing Discovery now for probably 8 months. And I don't think there's a smoking gun. I don't think there's an email from Kathleen or Bob Iger telling everyone to hate Gina Carano. I don't think there's an email from the head of HR saying, let's fire her because she likes Trump. You don't end up in those positions and make those kind of mistakes, at least not today. Maybe 40 years ago, but you don't do it today. So, yeah, Gina, Breezy, her family is, but if I recall correctly, there's an issue there. Like, doesn't she not like her dad or something? I can't remember. Where was I? Yeah, so I think what they probably found was a bunch of stuff that if they needed to go to trial, they could use it to make Disney look bad, but they couldn't actually prove that Disney fired her because of this. And again, it's California. You got a California jury. Just because it's federal court doesn't mean they're going to grab people from all over the country. They're grabbing them from right there in California. They, Gina's attorneys probably didn't want to risk getting a very liberal very liberal jury that doesn't like Gina Carano. There's still a bunch of people out there that listen to what, Pedro Pascal tweets and shit like that. And I mean, California is a bad place to try a case like this, even if it's gender discrimination, which you would want that jury to be for, but it's still Gina Carano. All you need is a couple of bad days of bad press to basically destroy the entire jury pool. What did you say, Lean Back? You said, yes, one can definitely put the two sides together, what they say now and what they said then. And then you're talking about Sandra Locke, blonde from Outlaw Josie Wales, and The Gauntlet. You don't recommend The Gauntlet? I've never seen it. I wonder if, since Disney Image is in the toilet right now, had something to do with the settlement. Disney didn't want bad press at the moment. Well, so the thing is, I definitely think that had something to play with it. And I'm sure the bad returns on a lot of their movies recently played a role as well. But if Disney had won, like, that does irreversible damage to, I would argue, the right. Like, Disney would be able to swing that victory, come off the plane with the white paper in their hand. First person to give me the reference wins $1. Somehow, I don't know. They'd be able to walk off the plane with that paper in their hand saying, we won. And they'd be able to show that, the party of peace and tolerance and shit like that is still live and well. I think in the long run, this is a better thing to happen. Now I pause and wait to see if anyone gets the reference. I think there's a little bit more to it. No, I think that was... She did also tweet this morning that the truth shall set you free. Nobody gets it? Okay, how about if I showed you this picture? Do you get it now? Hang on 1 second. Hmm. Oh, let me see what. Holy shit! Who was it? Ryan is saying. So this is Neville Chamberlain, guys. Neville Chamberlain was the Prime Minister of the UK while. Um, Hang on. Hold up. This is Deadline. No, it's not. It's not a movie reference. I'll tell you what. You gotta love the way Ryan does video mode. Um, Here we go. Oh, here we go. Wait for it. Wait for it. Hang on. Okay. I'll look to see. So this is what they say. It's a 3-page document that literally says, hey, we've made a deal outside of court. Please, assuming you agree with the settlement that we've come up with, please dismiss the action. What's unfortunate is that anyone that is kind of complaining, there's a fair point to be made. There was a lot that I think we were all hoping to see. Like I've said several times, I never thought we were going to see how the sausage was made, but I did think that we were going to at least get a little bit more information on what kind of meat was in the sausage through a trial or something like that. Other than that, though, I think that's about it. I think this kind of closes the book on. Sorry, I just lost my armrest. I think this closes the book on that chapter of Disney and Gina. Obviously, my understanding is that Gina is wanting to do like not a UFC comeback, but I think she's wanting to do another fight. That's based on very little intuition. I know almost nothing about UFC, but that's just something that I have kind of gathered through little bits of Welcome to the Rebellion and shit like that. Okay. I've got Ryan on like a very tiny little bit because I want to hear if he says anything about like He already did mention that basically discovery had happened. God. See, this is the thing that annoys me. I really don't think this is proper. I probably shouldn't be doing this. But there's someone in his chat right now saying discovery would have opened them up for more legal action from others, most likely. And that's not true. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And it's so damn annoying. Discovery is not, you don't share Discovery, you don't tweet it, you don't go on podcasts and talk about what you saw because you get fucking disbarred. You gotta love a fucking good Capri Sun. Okay, let's talk about Texas. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I should have looked at this. I'm literally copying Ryan right now. Let's look up transphobe on Twitter. Latest? I was really hoping for a little bit more. Oh, well, fuck it. Okay, so Texas. So we got some big shit happening in Texas. So Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, I think he's fumbled this shit a little bit. Okay, I'm trying to think about where to start with this because there's so many avenues into this story. Let's start with the very beginning. So about 2 weeks ago, we know that Donald Trump basically, from what it sounds like, called up Greg Abbott and said, hey, I think you should redistrict. Now, that is weird because redistricting doesn't really happen until after a census. And we had a census in 2020. Obviously, there's issues with that census. However far on the conspiracy stream you are, there's clearly issues with that census. You can be one of the most believe everything you see people and understand that the 2020 census has issues. Ooh. Good. No, we haven't seen that either. That's it. See, and that's one of the things that makes Ryan one of the best YouTubers is he understands like the way shit works. He understands the way the system works and whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. You know, there's certain stuff that's just not happening. And as much as people would all love to live in this world where we get to be a fly on the wall and see everything, that just doesn't happen. So back to Texas, because everything's bigger and better in Texas. So Trump basically calls up Greg Abbott and says redistrict. Greg Abbott says, okay. And I'm very simplifying this, guys. Greg Abbott says, okay. And a bunch of people start tweeting about, oh, this is where we're going to redistrict. This is how it's going to be done. Yada, yada, yada. This is the new map. And then kind of what starts all of this is Jasmine Crockett doesn't shut her dang mouth. She gets on TV, she gets on Twitter, she gets on YouTube, and she starts talking about how this is a destruction of her democracy. This is the destruction of her seat. This is all because she's willing to take on Donald Trump, and the Republicans in Texas don't like that. It's a lie. She talks about how how this would force her to campaign outside of her district. in the United States, in the U.S. House of Representatives, you don't actually have to live in your district to run for that House seat. You can live in a different district, which honestly I didn't know until like 4 days ago. That shocked me. But yeah, you don't have to. I can run for District 1 in South Carolina, which I believe is Charleston, even though I live in Columbia. I think it's dumb. I think you should have to live in your district. So they start fighting. There's a bunch of like back and forth on Twitter and in the news and all that. You get different Democrats that are trying to be in charge now. You get Gavin Newsom from over in California. You get JP Fatso from Illinois. I know I don't really have much to say, but he's fatter than I, so I can say it. And then you get the ugly woman. You get Catherine Hochul from New York, and you get the ugly woman from Massachusetts. And they all start talking about how they're going to redistrict and they're going to eliminate Republican seats to match what the Republicans are doing in Texas. And all come to find out that they're already so gerrymandered that they couldn't actually do that without possibly losing Democrat seats. So then this week, Monday, last week, the governor called a special session. And they were all supposed to meet in where is Dallas the capital? Austin? Austin. Yeah, so they're all supposed to be in Austin in the State House and start voting on shit. A lot of it not even doing with redistricting. They were supposed to vote on flood relief. They were supposed to vote on some border stuff. There was what else was there? I can't really remember. There's a lot of stuff that the governor put on the docket. And so what the Democrats did, what 50 state legislators, elected officials at the Democratic Party did, was they got on planes and they left. A bunch of them went to Illinois. Some of them went to Massachusetts. I think a couple are in New York and Michigan. And so Greg Abbott said, no, you don't get to do this. So he sent a letter, or he issued a letter saying, by the authority of Attorney General Decision KP 036, something like that, if the members that have left to deny quorum do not return, then I will order your seats vacated and appoint new representatives. Now, the problem is this power that the Attorney General says the governor has never been tested. So Paxton then makes some like confusing statements today's Thursday, Tuesday, saying that, we'd actually have to sue in every district that they're from, and that's going to take a lot of time and money, and kind of indicating he didn't want to do that. John Coleman, senator from Texas, sends a letter to Kash Patel, director of the FBI, saying, I am now requesting that the FBI aid in the execution of the warrants issued by the Texas House of Representatives, and you return the Democrats to the state of Texas. Because in 2003, when they did this again, the Bush FBI and the Bush Marshal Service refused to aid the Texas Sergeant of Arms. They said, we're not going to get involved. And honestly, in 2003, I think that was probably the right answer, because in 2003 we weren't as polarized. We could still sit down and have a conversation. They ended up coming back and they ended up doing everything. It was fine. But this time, I think you've got people with that D next to their name who just refuse to even try and be part of the solution. It's not a solution unless it's their way. And that's a real problem. So where were we? So on Tuesday, the Speaker of the House for Texas issued warrants or civil warrants for the arrest of all the legislators that were not there for the call of the quorum. And I believe it was about 50 reps, 50 Democrat reps out of Texas. And obviously, they can't do anything. That warrant, that piece of paper means nothing outside the borders of Texas. That's why Cartmen has asked the FBI for help. And now we find out today, this is 4 minutes ago, AG Paxton has asked the Supreme Court, has asked Illinois court to enforce the Texas arrest warrants against State House Democrats. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is asking an Illinois court to enforce arrest warrants against Democrats who fled to the Prairie State over GOP efforts to redraw Texas congressional maps. Paxton's petition to the Illinois 8th Judicial Circuit asked for the enforcement of the rules of law in Illinois, the assistance of Illinois law enforcement officials, and the court's assistance to lawfully return to Texas the respondent legislators who fled to Illinois to evade their duties in participating in the ongoing special session. Now, what's interesting about this is, what's up, Scott? How you doing, man? Haven't seen you in forever. I hope everything's going good. So what's interesting is that JB Fatso has already said that the FBI will not be welcomed in Illinois to aid in these arrests. I can't really think of anything dumber than tell the chief law enforcement officer of the United States federal government that he's not welcome in one of the states. Even at like the worst times of Barack Obama, I cannot think of our governor, who at the time was Nikki Haley. She was a good governor, terrible presidential candidate, good governor. I mean, shit. What's his name in Florida? It's kind of like that. He's a fucking fantastic governor. He's a terrible presidential candidate. They are. We never would have told Eric Holder or whoever the FBI director was at the time that they weren't welcome in South Carolina. We would never have done that because we respect the rule of law. Now, what's interesting is that what we're finally seeing out of Texas is investigations into the NGO and PAC, web net of money that helped fund this. Ken Paxton has announced that he's launching an investigation into Beto O'Rourke's political group for funding these flights and the flights, both fleeing and aerial flights. Could they swear out a federal flight to avoid prosecution warrant and have the U.S. Marshals pick them up? Can you rephrase that? Because I'm not sure what you mean. Hello there. How you doing, Steve? Number 2, right? Now, I will say that I think Ken Paxton's being a little more dogged than he would be because he is running for governor right now because Greg Abbott's time is up. and I think Ken Paxton is trying to get Trump's endorsement. So I think he's being more dogged than he would be. Paxton's been a really good attorney general. He's done a very good job of defending the state of Texas in the Supreme Court. But attorneys don't make very good governors. They get along with the other side too well. We're a little skeevy, I'll admit it. 52? Damn, man, you don't look a day over 51. Oh, that gave me a good laugh. Let's see, where else? So, and again, like, how terrible must it be to be Beto O'Rourke? Like, this guy, he can't. Let's see, what does he lose? Campaigns. So this is my favorite thing. He's called a politician. Okay, so he served in the U.S. House of Representatives from Texas's 16th district, from 13 to 19. Okay, and prior to that, he was the mayor of El Paso for a year. Or was he I think he was the assistant mayor, the lieutenant mayor. And he was a member of the El Paso City Council from 2005 to 2011. Huh. So at 33, he suddenly decided to get into politics. Scott said, I know that our local guys are on a task force with U.S. Marshals, and they go out and catch bad guys that are really wanted on local warrants. But if they fled to another state, USM can help them get them. Yes. So that's what John Coman's letter to Cash Patel is asking. He basically wants the Marshals or the FBI to deputize or federalize the Texas Rangers so that they can go get them, because they know where they are. They just, they can't leave Texas. There are very few times that the Texas Rangers have been able to operate outside of Texas. One of them, I believe, so Ma, whatever her name was the governor of Texas, first female governor in the history of the United States. She, what'd she do? Removed, canceled? No. She closed the Texas Rangers down because they were too violent, basically. And she brought back a couple to go hunt Bonnie and Clyde. And during that time, those Rangers did go into other states to hunt Bonnie and Clyde. But were they really allowed? Oklahoma probably wouldn't have really cared if they had been able to actually get them. But with the exception of that, very few times are the Texas Rangers actually allowed to operate outside. I know that there's one time that Texas Democrats tried to leave the state and go to Oklahoma to hide out to prevent a vote, and the Texas Rangers were allowed to go in and get them. No, the Secret Service would not help in this at all. It's so outside their purview. There's two things the Secret Service is in charge of: protection of certain federal officers and our money, and that's it. Secret Service, our money is in the sole command of the Secret Service. And then obviously the protection of president, vice president, certain senior members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and the cabinet, I believe. Yummy. Okay, we're done with that. Any questions, guys? Anyone got any legal questions they want to? What did Lily say? Just look at Chris Christie's former AG. He was my governor before I fled the state. Yeah. And we've got, now I will say that South Carolina's AG, Alan Wilson, is running for governor, and I think he's going to win. I'm not really sure I want Nancy Mace to be governor. I think she likes the spotlight a little too much. Alan Wilson has done a very good job of kind of just keeping his head down, doing his job. He has defended the state of South Carolina in the Supreme Court several times. He has had my favorite thing he did. South Carolina passed a voting law and I think I've talked about this before, but South Carolina passed a voting law in like 2011, and the Court of Appeals struck it down because it violated, I believe, Section 4 of the 1964 Voting Rights Act, which said that any of these 9 states, and they just so happen to be the Confederate States of America, if any of them make a voting law, it has to be approved by either a 3-judge panel in their circuit or a panel of judges in D.C. The Supreme Court struck that down, arguing that states are the sole owners of their elections, and the only thing that federal law has over elections is who is allowed to vote. Yeah, lean back. The U.S. Marshals are exactly who they would. It's either the U.S. Marshals or the FBI, but that's who would likely go in. But the director of the Marshals and the director of the FBI are the ones that have to say go. Now, Kash Patel has said the FBI will aid in the returning of the legislators, and the legislators have until noon tomorrow to get back. So if anyone watches planes, anything like that, I would watch planes leaving Illinois and heading to Texas. Because what I think is going to happen, and I said this in a video yesterday, I believe, I think that we're going to see several of these members return enough to get quorum, and the rest are going to stay wherever and be like, look what they're doing in our state. And this entire thing is a campaign for Act Blue. Do not go and look at every link that any of these people are sharing. Let's see. Texas House Democrats. Let's go to Twitter. I'm looking for names of people. Representative Jean Wu. Representative Jean Wu. I spelled Jean wrong. I know he's got a tweet here. Because I saw a couple of them the other day. Here we go. Okay. Let's share this. So this is the minority leader of Texas. So please support our efforts. Donate to Texas House Democrat Caucus. So we click this. Holy shit. The website's not even fucking finished. How old is this website? Is that Hakeem Jeffries? That's definitely a dude. Okay, if I... Oh, y'all can't see it. Hang on one second. I want to see... I was hoping that... So, I was hoping if I went to give an amount, it would tell me, like, a terms and conditions more than just you're over 18. But look at this. Like, this is the shit that websites have on them when you, like, preload them to start making your website. It's not even finished. It's pathetic. Let's see. Who else we got? Who's the really, like, dumb looking one? Let's see. James Tallarico. Yeah. Wow, I spelled it correctly. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so he's a Democrat representative from the state of Texas. I mean, this dude doesn't even, this guy doesn't even shave yet. They're doing this wrong, by the way. Like, they're, and see, look at this. This guy has gone on every single talk show because he's trying to be like the more masculine version of Harry Sison. So he's going on every single talk show, talk about everything they're doing. Let's see if it's on here. So here's his support page. Okay, so what's fast action? Fast action pack. There, it's just a like autofill thing. Endorsements. Mothers against Greg Abbott. Just looking to see if Ali Pack was one of the endorsers. If I were you, I wouldn't let your kid that close to this guy. Okay. Well, I can't find them. I don't know why. Maybe they've taken them down. But every one of those posts from this guy, from all of these other Democrats, they all had @blue links in them. And they were all them trying to basically it was all of them trying to basically say, hey, send me money to support this, but that money wouldn't go to support his fight or pay his hotel bill or something like that. It was going to go to a pot at Blue to support all the things that USAID is not supporting anymore. Anybody seeing these sorority recruitment videos? Well, I think that might be it. Let's hear it. Oh, my thing, yeah. I agree. Y'all want to see something? So PIA, I believe they're the official Pakistan International Airlines. That's what they are, okay? This is their ad to tell everyone that they are resuming flights between Islamabad and Paris. You don't have to say anything. We know what we're thinking. What the fuck? Graphic designer, definitely born in 2002 or later. Holy shit. I think that's it, guys. I don't. I'm scrolling through Twitter trying to see if there's anything, and there isn't really anything interesting. Oh, I like this one. Okay. So this is interesting, Lily. Yeah. So, how would federalization of DC look? So, this is, DC is not its own thing. A lot of the power of the mayor, of the DC police, and all that subsists because there are members of Congress who should be in charge of it, but they're just too busy. A lot of the power of the I believe Capitol Police comes from the House, from the Speaker of the House's office. Um, Funds are earmarked out of I believe Congress's budget specifically for DC. So federalization, you basically, I don't think you remove the mayor, but he kind of becomes like a sidestep. You basically sidestep the mayor, and it's similar to martial law, but instead of having police and or army or soldiers and tanks rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue, you've got you definitely probably have National Guard called in. The DC National Guard would be called in. Maybe members from the guards of the states around DC, so Maryland, Virginia, they would get called in, activated. They'd act as police guarding federal property. Most of DC is federal property, so they wouldn't have the same issue that you'd have in California. But the issue, I think, becomes like how long are they there for? This is not going to be a 60-day process. New York City had this same issue in the 80s. They called them, I think it was called the bad old days, where, I mean, it was, you couldn't walk down Broadway. You couldn't walk in Times Square without getting mugged or something like that. So, like, the police took it to the criminals, and in some cases, they definitely probably violated some civil rights. But you know, when you're trying to clean up the streets, when you're trying to remove a criminal element, sometimes you have to get a little dirty. Sometimes you've got to stop being the nice guy. You know, I'll give you an example. Y'all know who Nigel Farage is? He's the leader of let's call it the Britain Party. I forget exactly what party it is over in the UK, but he was the leader of Brexit. And so Nigel Farage, he's being asked here what I'll just play the fucking clip. Here we go.
You say migrants in hotels should be deported. Where should they be deported to if their country isn't safe or if another country won't accept them?
I'm sorry, I've had enough of this. If you come from Afghanistan, you go back to Afghanistan. End of. This idea we can't send people to certain countries, all the false claims that people make about their own personal lives. I'm sorry, we're done. We're done. We've had enough.
And that's how I feel. You know, I'm 30 years old. You know, for the first 29 years of my life, I was probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I wanted to give everyone their fair shot. I thought, you know what? Better one innocent man or better 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man be locked up. And I'm getting kind of past that. You know, I'm sick and tired of criminals being released on the streets. I'm sick and tired of judges bypassing the rule of law because the guy that gives them a lot of money wants them to do certain stuff. I'm sick and tired of Supreme Court justices not understanding the law, not understanding the thing they've been practicing for 40 years. I'm sick and tired of senators and representatives making light of the issues that everyday Americans, not illegals, not people that just happen to vote for you, not people that you rely on to vote and keep your party going. I'm sick of it. This is what I want. If you are an American citizen, if you can walk into a post office, receive the blue American passport, then what you have to say matters. If you can't, then I don't give a flying fuck what you think. If you live in a country that doesn't end with United States of America and you have an opinion on our laws or what our president says, you can shut your damn mouth. That's where I'm at. Is your country abusing you? Is your president mean? Are drug gangs shooting into your house at night? You know what? You're no longer welcome. Fix your damn country. That's where I'm at. I don't care what's going on in the world anymore. I'm sick and tired of being the world's police. I used to think it was a calling from God to be the world's police. I used to think that it was something that we needed to do because if we didn't do it, who else would? Who would stand up for the little guy? Who would stand up for the countries being oppressed by unelected leadership? Who would stand up for the countries oppressed by tyrants and everything that leads to it? If not for us, if not for the country, the first country in the history of the world that decided to liberate itself from the same stuff, who would stand up for them if not us? And then in the 90s, we refused to say anything about what was going on in Rwanda. In the 10s, we refused to say anything about what was going on in Colombia. We refused to say anything about what's going on in the Congo. We let the Irish go over to the Congo 9 times in a row without sending any American troops. It isn't about property. It isn't about gaining land. It's about what's right. And here's what's right now. Fix our own country. Remember what Christ said. Why will you sit there? I'm going to butcher it. But take the speck of dust out of your own eye before you take the log out of his eye, or vice versa. I can't remember. But we are sitting here. We have hundreds of thousands of homeless, maybe millions of homeless people in our streets. We've got veterans that can't support themselves. Every 22 minutes, a veteran kills himself. How dare we give money to another country until that number is zero? How dare an elected official say this country needs aid or this country needs money? I honestly do not think we would give a damn if we weren't. You know what? Let's go back to Abraham. One of the tenets of the Shabbat, the resting on the Sabbath day, one of the tenets was that if the ox is in the ditch, you're allowed to work. Remember, the idea was that you were not allowed to work on the Sabbath, okay, unless your ox was in the ditch. Unless something important was happening, then you were allowed to work. If that's something that's been a thing for 5,000 years, why have we suddenly stopped caring about it? Why have we suddenly started acting like it's not important? We've continued to kick the can down the road and hope that the problem just fixes itself. It's not going to happen. Is that enough? Welcome to my TED Talk, guys. Man, more of you, a lot more people would have enjoyed this. Illinois banned AI therapy today. Interesting. Lily, I might. It wasn't as beautiful as I had hoped. So I might just leave it here. Don't know yet. Okay, guys, that's going to be it. I am going to be over on King's Advisors in less than an hour playing Battlefield 6. I'd love to see y'all there. If not, then I'm sure I'll be around. I'll definitely be around this weekend. I'll probably be playing Battlefield all weekend. I'm enjoying it. Guys, have a great night. I hope everyone has a blessed weekend, a blessed Friday. I hope you walk into work, you get promotion, you get a raise. I hope you get thanked for your work, because I think we can all agree we would all like more money. But being appreciated at your job is it's worth, for me, it's probably worth $20,000 a year. Having my boss come to me and say, Caleb, good job. You did a good job today. I love it. And chat, it's the same thing with y'all. All these, good job, thank you, all that. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Steven, you should definitely come watch me play Fortnite or play Battlefield. Screw Fortnite. Peace out, guys. We're gonna go I'm gonna work on the intro. It's gonna get better, and my outro is gonna get better too. Don't worry, guys. I know I keep saying it, but it's gonna happen. Don't worry. Peace out.